Hello, class. Once again, we are still working with area. And the question is how can you use a formula to find the area of a rectangle? So we're going to unlock this problem, and this is our Go Math Worksheet 12.4. And it says the length, which they note with a L, a lowercase l here, of a rectangle can be the measure of any side. The width, which is a lowercase w, is the measure of a side perpendicular to the side used as the length. Okay, perpendicular is one of our new vocabulary words in here, and we actually hit it really hard in geometry, sorry. But perpendicular lines and perpendicular line segments form right angles. So I know you learned last year a right angles, they come together at 90 degrees. So this line right here is perpendicular to this one because it makes a 90-degree angle. Just like these lines are all perpendicular to each other because they make those right 90-degree angles, okay? So basically they're just telling you adjacent means next to, okay? So this is the length and this is the width, and these actually, if it's a rectangle, we know that the angles all make 90 degrees, and that's why they're perpendicular. We talked about this in our last video. A square unit is a square that is 1 unit long and 1 unit wide. Area is the number of square units needed to cover a flat surface without any gaps or overlaps. The area of a unit square is 1 square unit. So if I am using squares to measure something, I'm going to say for every single square, that's a square unit. To find the area of the figure, count the number of squares inside the figure. The area is expressed in square units. So let's look at this. How are the length, width, and area of the rectangle related? We're going to complete this. So let's look at the length. Okay? If we look at the length, how long is this? How many squares along this is? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. And actually, we're not looking at squares. We're just looking at how the row across, that line across, how many across. Then the width is how far down it goes. And so there's 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 units going down. So if I want the area, the space inside, how can I figure out how many squares are in this entire rectangle? I bet some of you see it already. Hopefully you understood from arrays and the things that we've been working on already that 5 times 3 is 15, and that's the number of square units. And the units, so it's going to be 15 units squared, because that's the number of squares inside of here, and we want to use square units. Okay. In this next one, so if I look at the length, and even if it's a square, a length and the width, you know, the sides are all the same. If it's a rectangle, and this is really a square, so I kind of like to look at it as sides, because that's what it does on a math chart that we have. Your sides are all the same. So then you would say the side length of one is 3 units. The side length of the other is 3 units. And your formula, or how you would figure out, is a side times a side is going to give you that area. So what is 3 times 3? It is 9 units squared. So let's look down here and see what it says. What relationship do you see among the length, the width, and the area? You see a relationship? How is one turning into the other? How is this relating to this? Okay. Write a formula for the area of a rectangle using a letter A for area. So we're going to use A for area. The letter L for length, L for length. and W for width. I like to come back and look at an example that we have done already. So I'm going to come back over here, and I know the length of this. This is my length, and it equals 5. And this was my width, and it equals 3. So how did we find that relationship between here? Area is, how did we find that area A? Because this was the area. Area equals the length times the width. And I'm going to put, that's a lowercase l, but it looks a little Danilian because it has a little curl, because the one in your math chart has a little curl too. So we want you to recognize that. It's the length times the width. And that would be the formula you would use, and that's the relationship among the length and the width of in the area of a rectangle. So now let's go to this next page. You can use a formula to find the area. So that's just what we talked about here. A is equal to the length times the width, and the W stands for width, L stands for length, and area. And if you look at a rectangle, you can find the length and the width. So here's an example in here, and then we'll do a few down here, and then I'll expect you guys to be able to finish it. Use the formula to find the area of a rectangle and a square. And actually a square is a rectangle, so you can use the same formula. You don't have to use side, 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 and side. We will be looking at that because that's on our math charts that we're going to be going over with. But right now, they just want us to use A is equal to length times the width. So if I'm looking at this example on A, you write the formula down first, okay? This is something that you work down. As you get into higher level math, you start working problems down and you plug in going down. So we start here, even though we think it's, oh, that's so simple. Why do we need to do that? Well, it's going to help us and train us for future math when we have to do big equations and work them down. So we write A is equal to length times the width. Then you rewrite this underneath there. You're going to rewrite A, area is equal to, inside of length, we know 6 is the length and 2 is the width. So I'm going to input, in place of L, we're going to put 6. In place of W, we're going to put 2. Okay? And so then equals, we multiply that and we do get 12. But the area isn't just 12. We've got to recognize our units here. And sometimes I tell students to write foot or whatever it is, foot and 2 feet, 2 feet. And a foot times a foot is a foot squared with that little 2. There's 2 of them there. So our answer would be 12 square feet. And you can say it either way, 12 feet squared or 12 squared feet. Now, what's cool is that it will work for a square too. A square, to know it's a square, all sides are equal. And it shows you here that the side lengths are all equal going around because the length is 2 meters and the width. So A, rewriting the formula, always write area is length times the width. A, that would be 2 meters times 2 meters. Well, what's 2 times 2 is 4. A meter times a meter is a meter squared. So we don't forget when we're doing area, we have to square those units because we're using squares to measure that space that's inside of here. So the area is 4 meters squared or 4 squared meters. You could say that either way. Okay. Now what we're going to do is I would like you to work these problems, the show and share this 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? And actually, let me just do number 5 with you, and then I'm going to let you take off and do the rest of this page yourself. And you can always go back and rewind these videos and watch how we do them. But let's look at number 5. Here, they just tell you to find the area of a rectangle. So they tell you the shape is a rectangle. And if you want to, draw that picture. And it tells you the length is 16 feet and the width is 6 feet. So you write, the first thing I want you to do is write your formula. A is equal to length times the width. Okay? So then A is equal to, the length is 16 feet times 6 feet. So then you might have to go out to the side, and that's perfectly fine. Or also get your scratch paper, 16 times 6. So then we go up and over. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 3 is 9. So then we work that down. Area is equal to 96. A foot times a foot is a foot squared. We cannot forget that. So then the answer here is area equals 96 feet squared. Did you see how I have 3, the formula filled in, the formula worked out problems to the side. So I want to see those 3 lines on all of these. Okay, friends? Okay, go ahead and finish this video. Good luck, and then we will continue on tomorrow with hitting area and perimeter and those formulas.